You know the feeling. Someone asks how your weekend was, and you say, "Good, yeah, relaxing," and they say, "Same," and you both stand there holding coffee cups and wondering what comes next. It's not that you dislike the person, it's not that you're rude, it's that something about the exchange feels hollow, like you're both following a script that neither of you wrote and neither of you particularly enjoys. So, what's actually going on when small talk feels like work? And what does the research say about whether anyone actually benefits from it? The answer is more surprising than you'd think. Small talk is everywhere. It's the conversational default, the mode we drop into with strangers, colleagues, acquaintances, and sometimes even with the people we know best. How's it going? Busy? Tell me about it. End of exchange. For many people, this works perfectly well. It's a social lubricant, a way to signal friendliness, establish rapport, and navigate the opening minutes of an interaction without risk. It says, "I see you, I'm not a threat, we can coexist." Researchers define small talk as a conversation where both partners walk away knowing equally little about each other, where only trivial information is exchanged. But for a significant portion of people, small talk doesn't feel like lubrication. It feels like friction. Not because they can't do it, most of them can and they do every day, but because the gap between the effort it takes and the meaning it produces feels disproportionate. The cost is real but invisible, and the conventional explanation that they're socially anxious or rude or just bad at conversation doesn't hold up well when you look at the research. Clinical psychologist Lori Helgo put it directly: people who dislike small talk don't dislike people. They dislike the barrier small talk creates between them and the kind of connection they're actually looking for. The question is, what kind of connection do they want? And why does the surface level feel so costly? Part of the answer is neurological. As we explored in an earlier video, introverts tend to have higher baseline cortical arousal. Their brains are already running at a higher idle. Additional stimulation pushes them past their comfort threshold more quickly, and small talk is by definition additional stimulation without corresponding reward. But there's a deeper mechanism at work. Small talk requires a specific kind of cognitive effort, continuous self-monitoring. You're not just exchanging words. You're tracking social cues, managing how you come across, evaluating every response for appropriateness, and adjusting in real time. Psychologists describe this as cognitive load, the total mental effort your working memory is handling at any given moment. For people whose brains are already running closer to their optimal arousal threshold, this cognitive load hits harder. The conversation doesn't have to be stressful to be draining. It just has to be effortful without being meaningful. That's the key distinction, the cost to meaning ratio. And here's where one of the most creative studies in this field comes in. Psychologist Matthias Mehl at the University of Arizona wanted to know whether happy people and unhappy people differ in the kinds of conversations they have. So he gave 79 participants a device called the Electronically Activated Recorder, the EAR, which captured 30-second snippets of their real daily conversations over 4 days. The results were striking. The happiest participants had roughly twice as many substantive conversations, and only about a third as much small talk as the unhappiest. They also spent about 25% less time alone and 70% more time talking. The finding held even after the researchers controlled for personality differences, suggesting that the link between conversation depth and well-being wasn't simply explained by extroverts talking more. And importantly, the definition of substantive wasn't limited to philosophical debates or emotional confessions. Mehl defined it as any conversation where meaningful information was exchanged, where both people walked away knowing something more about each other or the world. It could be about politics, about relationships, even about the weather. It just had to go beyond the trivial. A larger replication in 2018 with 486 participants, including breast cancer survivors, divorced adults, and meditation practitioners, confirmed the core finding. Substantive conversations were reliably associated with higher life satisfaction, but it also refined the picture. Small talk, it turned out, was not reliably associated with lower well-being. It was neutral, neither helpful nor harmful. So the issue isn't that small talk is bad. It's that substantive conversation is measurably better. And the people who avoid small talk may be instinctively seeking the kind of interaction that research links to well-being. So, if deep conversations are better for well-being, and if this holds for both introverts and extroverts, why don't people just skip the small talk and go straight to what matters? Researchers at Northwestern, the University of Texas, and the University of Chicago tested exactly this. Across 12 experiments involving more than 1,800 participants, Michael Cardis, Amit Kumar, and Nicholas Epley asked strangers to have either shallow conversations, typical small talk topics, or deep ones, like describing a time they cried in front of someone, or what they felt most grateful for in life. Before the conversations, participants predicted the deep ones would be awkward. They expected their partner wouldn't really care about their disclosures. They braced for discomfort. But after the conversations, the picture reversed. The deep exchanges felt less awkward than anticipated, created more connection, and made participants happier than they expected. And this was true even between complete strangers. No differences between men and women. No differences between introverts and extroverts. The researchers identified what they called a psychological barrier to deeper conversation. We systematically underestimate how much others want to connect. We assume the stranger won't care, that they'll meet our honesty with indifference. So we default to the weather. And this connects to something broader. Research from Carleton University found that less extroverted individuals consistently expect to enjoy social interactions less than they actually do. They approach conversations, especially with strangers, with pessimistic expectations that the data doesn't support. All but those at the extreme low end of extroversion actually experience increased positive affect after socializing. So the aversion to small talk may be partly self-reinforcing. You expect it to be draining. It sometimes is, because the conversation stays shallow. But the research suggests the drain isn't inevitable. It's a feature of what the conversation is, not of who you are. What Susan Cain describes as the extrovert ideal, the cultural pressure to be constantly sociable, upbeat, and talkative, may also play a role. When the dominant social norm prizes volume over depth, people who naturally prefer depth start to interpret their own discomfort as a deficiency rather than a preference. Here's what the research actually shows. The aversion to small talk isn't rudeness, and it isn't a social deficit. It's a signal. From your cognitive system, from your arousal threshold, from the part of you that knows the difference between performing a conversation and having one. Substantive conversations are linked to higher well-being. People want deeper conversations more than they think they do. And the barrier to having them isn't capability. It's the assumption that no one else wants to go there. Small talk isn't the enemy. It's a starting point. The research suggests the problem isn't that we begin on the surface. It's that we stay there, partly because we've miscalibrated how much the person across from us is willing to go deeper. Knowing this won't make networking events feel like intimate dinners, but it might change what you say next time someone asks how your weekend was. This is part of a larger pattern in how social norms shape the quality of our connections, and how much we leave on the table by defaulting to safe. This is the human frame, facts first, context always. If this changed how you see something, subscribe. We'll keep going.